Okay, guys, I am on the back of the October 22nd Bellwork, and we're going to do some more practicing on kind of identifying what element I'm talking about and some of the characteristics. So these 6 models, there's not a whole lot of detail to them because even in the little box or the hexagon or whatever that represents the nucleus, there's just a letter, and the letters don't even correspond to any of the chemical symbols. So there's no chemical symbol A on the periodic table, there's no chemical symbol X, etc. So it's just model A, model X, model Z, model D, E, and J. So there's no information that you can see directly about anything in the nucleus, so anything about protons and neutrons, but we can use the information that we do have and kind of work our way backwards. So the first and most important thing that you need to realize is that you should assume that all of these atoms are neutral. Basically, you can assume an atom is neutral unless I tell you differently, or unless the question that I'm asking states specifically that it's not neutral or that it has a certain charge. So we can assume that all of these atoms are neutral. Once we assume all of the atoms are neutral, then our situation gets a little bit easier. If we assume all the atoms are neutral, then we know that the number of electrons is equal to our number of protons, and our number of protons, remember, tells us our atomic number. Okay, so we can kind of work backwards and figure out what elements we have. Okay, so have a periodic table handy so that we can figure out what elements we're talking about. All right, so let's look at model A right here. So first of all, I'm going to look. I have a total of 2 electrons. And if I have a total of 2 electrons, then I know that that means that I have a total of 2 protons. That means that my atomic number is 2. And then I can go to the periodic table, and it's helium that has the atomic number of 2. All right, so I know that this is helium. My next question is, how many valence electrons do I have? And remember, helium only uses 1 electron energy level, and you can only put 2 electrons in that first energy level. Well, helium only has 2 electrons. So those 2 electrons are its only 2 electrons, and it's the outer energy level, and so we have 2 valence electrons for helium. Okay. So VE stands for valence electrons. Then I'm going to look one more time. Helium is in what column? Helium is in column 18. It's kind of smudged. Or column 8A. That's an important piece of information also. Okay, column 18 or 8A. All right, so let's do the next one. First of all, how many total electrons do we have? We've got a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons. If I have 4 electrons, that means I have 4 protons. If I have 4 protons, that means the atomic number is also 4. And so now I go shopping on the periodic table to figure out what has 4 protons. And that is going to be beryllium right there. All right, so this one's beryllium. Now we need to figure out how many valence electrons beryllium has. Remember, valence electrons are only the electrons in the outermost energy level. And beryllium has 2 electrons in the outermost energy level, so it's got 2 valence electrons. Also, I need to know where beryllium is. Beryllium is right here. It's in column 2, otherwise known as column 2A. All right, so that does it for beryllium. Let's move on to model Z. If I look carefully and count the electrons, there are a total of 11 electrons. So if I have 11 electrons, that means I also have 11 protons. That means my atomic number is 11. And then I can go to the periodic table and figure out who has atomic number 11. And that is going to be sodium right there. All right. Okay, so this is sodium. The next thing we need to do is we need to figure out the number of valence electrons, and we need to figure out what column sodium is in. Remember that the valence electrons are only the electrons in the outermost energy level, or the outermost ring, and there is only one on that outermost ring. So there is one valence electron for sodium, and we come back over here and we notice that sodium is right here. That is column 1, otherwise known as column 1A. So let's write that information down. Okay, that should do it for sodium. Let's move up and let's look at the next couple. All right, model D, if you count very carefully, there are 2 electrons on that inner lowest energy level. There are 8 on the second energy level, and there are 7 on the third energy level, for a total of 17 electrons. All right, if you have 17 electrons and you know it's neutral, then you also have 17 protons, and the atomic number is also 17. So I need to go back to the periodic table and figure out who is element 17, and that is chlorine. All right, chlorine, let's see. Next thing we need to do is figure out how many valence electrons there are for chlorine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 valence electrons for chlorine. And that also means chlorine is in column 17 or column 7A. So let's write that down as well. All right, that should do it for chlorine. Let's move to the next one. We need to count the total number of electrons because we're going to backtrack from that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 total electrons. If the atom is neutral and we've got 10 electrons, then we know we also have 10 protons, and we know that the atomic number is 10. If the atomic number is 10, then we go to the periodic table and figure out which element has an atomic number of 10, and that is neon. So model E is neon. Model E has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 valence electrons. And if you will notice, neon is in column 18 or column 8A. So let's write all of that down. Okay, so there's your information for neon. Let's go to the last model. We just labeled it J, but we don't really know what element that is. J only has 1 electron, like 1 total electron. So if it's only got 1 electron and it's neutral, then that means it also only has 1 proton, and the atomic number is 1. So we look on the periodic table. The element with only 1 proton, or the atomic number of 1, is hydrogen. Okay? Hydrogen is in column 1 or column 1A, and hydrogen is only going to have 1 valence electron. Okay? It has actually 1 total electron, but it's on the outer ring because that's the only ring, so it's also 1 valence electron. So let's write that down real quick. All right, so now we've got all of our atom models figured out. We've got them labeled as to what element they represent, how many valence electrons they have, and what column all of them are in. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to tackle the questions that follow, and I'm going to put that on a separate screencast.